a different way to, but that was our entertainment, you know. I think the kids nowadays, they got such an access to technology, and they're on their phones and they're gaming, and I think that draws a lot of kids away. But we didn't have that kind of stuff, so we just had to make our own entertainment, you know. And you could only watch the Beverly Hillbillies repeat so many times, you know,
And
after school. You're you're exactly right, and you know, there's a culture. Like I know, like I coached a year in the Western Hockey League with the Regina Pats, and we had a very young team that year. So we were picked to finish last in Canada because we had the youngest team in Canada, which is always a junior hockey. If you're too young, it's not a good recipe. So, anyways, that year was kind of like the coach, the head coach. I probably disagree with him quite often because he was a real disciplinarian, and he was like you know, real tough on the kids, and you know, like everything was military almost, you know what I mean? And so I think there's, in a situation like that, if I could go back in time, I probably would have voiced my opinion stronger. That we got to let these kids have a little bit of fun, and we got to let them have a little bit of and try to reward them, even though we didn't beat the Brandon Wheat Kings tonight because they're stacked. Well, we can't just go bag skate them the next day.
so what's the secret, Mike? How come you haven't changed in 24 years?
Well, I've got a young wife that keeps me going, you know.
She had to sort out all your tech stuff for you too?
Oh yeah, she just did. Yeah, and my son. Yeah, this
Yeah.
morning I had them both figuring everything out for me.
Say hi to her for me. She's been the
Yeah.
conduit to making sure that I can actually get through on WhatsApp to you. I have to always text her first and say, hey,
Yeah.
make sure
And
that
she reminded me again this morning. She goes, "Hey, you've got that meeting with Nick today, so make sure you're on there." Okay. Yeah. All good.
folks, it's Mike Blaisdell, the one and only Mike Blaisdell coming. You're in Regina, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, coming to us from Regina, Saskatchewan, where you've been in the last few years now. Just I mean, just kicking back and chilling and relaxing, eh? You're just you're becoming a man of leisure.
Well, no, not really. I don't know. I'm still pretty active in the hockey. Or I work out of a high school. We have a big academy of like 200 kids. They're all top players, kind of from the southern Saskatchewan area. So it's that's been really good. And we started that 10 years ago with a buddy of mine, and it started out we had 52 kids. A lot of them could hardly skate, and now we have. I think we have 220 with 30 on a waiting list, so it's gone really good. So I'm you know, that keeps me pretty active in the hockey world, and then we do a lot of camps in the summer as well. So that the high school obviously goes through the winter, and then we have camps in the summer. So I'm on the ice quite a bit still.
Well, it's
So I
the only pictures I ever see are you like with your feet up around a fire or with it, just chilling around like just around the cabin or something like that. But so
yeah, well, that's when you take the pictures, you know.
yeah. Mike, you're a legend in UK hockey. You're 300 plus games in the NHL, and then moving over to the UK, I think with the Durham Wasps in 1991 season, and you're one of the most winningest coaches in UK hockey history, part of the Hockey Hall of Fame in the UK. I mean, you are a legend, and I cannot thank you enough.
I don't know. I wouldn't consider myself a legend,
Well,
but
do you know what?
I sure loved it over there, and we had some fun. That's for sure.
And I loved our experiences together. You and I, like, it wasn't so much as a player or coach, stuff like that, but it was like Sky Sports, and you were on as a guest, and that's where you and I formed our relationship. So Dude, I've got a lot of fond memories of working with you and also watching you coach and your time. We're gonna. Do we have about an hour of your time right now?
Oh yeah, yeah, no problem. Yeah, today's
Okay.
a good day for me. Yeah.
Okay, because this, Mike, what I've always wanted to be able to do with the podcast is have some purpose behind it. And over the last few years, particularly, I've really gotten involved in hockey and hockey culture and being able to support not just players, but coaches and parents and officials and hockey culture. As and on that phone call that we had a couple months ago is just really, I'm really intrigued with the idea of how hockey culture is evolving. And I think the best way to talk about it with people is through a podcast. So that's why I reached out to you a couple months because you're a guy with such experience in the game, from Southern Saskatchewan, which we're going to get into in a second, but also all of your time in the UK. So over the next little journey, let's talk about everything from being a player to a coach and a parent in hockey and what you've seen over hockey, or how it's evolved over the years. And let's start with the fact that you're from Moose Jaw and I'm from Pontex, so not too far away. I was born there in 1971, and I have really fond memories of my dad used to coach basketball in Pontex, and he
Okay.
coached basketball against Brian Trottier. So Brian Trottier was playing basketball in Val-Marie. My dad became friends with Buzz Trottier. So I have
Okay.
really early memories of like Brian Trottier being, I don't know, he would have been like in his like late teens, I think, playing for.
Was he a good basketball player?
I don't know because
He wasn't very big.
I was I was like 4 or 5 years old, but
Yeah,
him
yeah.
him and his buddies, they were always out on the farm after. And I remember my dad one summer, like I was on a tractor. I was only like 5, but I was on a tractor and there was Trache and all his buddies, and they were hauking like 75-pound hay bales into the back of trucks, and their
Okay.
weights tied around their ankles. So
Yeah.
those are my memories of growing up in hockey in Saskatchewan. What are yours growing up in Moose Jaw?
Well, you know what? I moved away. Moose Jaw was kind of just the place I was born, and we moved away. We moved into Regina when I was like, I believe, just before I turned 4. So I don't really remember anything about Moose Jaw too much. But Regina, um, we just, the thing that I see in the culture of hockey is we've spent just hours and hours and every day. As soon as school ended, we were just at the outdoor rink, and there was a guy that looked after the rink near our house. There was an old guy, and I think his name was Sid. I still remember all this, but anyways, he was an older fellow that looked after the ice just perfectly, and then he kept the shack burning with wood logs and to keep you warm. And we just spent I would go there, and then I think my mom would wait for me to get home for supper, and usually I was late, and then we'd go right back to the rink that night. And I mean, we're talking 20 and 30 below some nights, and so it was crazy. But I don't think the kids do that anymore. I see the outdoor rinks, and they're just empty. The
Yeah.
kids are so used to going on indoor ice, and they just very few of them go outdoor ice unless it's a really nice day and it's kind of a special occasion. So that's where culture's changed around here. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's all the guys that I've spoken with you, and they always talk about their fond memories of growing up in Saskatchewan or Alberta or Manitoba, and the -20, -30, and like there's really fond memories. You think it's really painful, you remember the sore hands when they were thawing out, or the toes when they were thawing out.
Toes for sure. Yeah. The hands a little less, but the toes,
Yeah.
they they would freeze up. But then what we used to do is
Here's
just let them freeze up, and then you couldn't feel them anymore for a while. So
um
yeah, it was a different way but that was our entertainment. I think the kids nowadays, they got such an access to technology, and they're on their phones, and they're gaming, and I think that draws a lot of kids away. But we didn't have that kind of stuff, so we just had to make our own entertainment. And you could only watch the Beverly Hillbillies repeat so many times,
and
after school. Yeah,
Flintstones,
and the
Petticoat
Flintstones.
Junction, Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Um, growing up in Regina with the Pats being the team there, and what do you remember about minor hockey? What were some of the lessons that you were taught? The coaches, what were they like? What was the culture around coaching like back then?
well, I think it was. I mean, you talk about the term old school, and we had, the coaches I remember were really tough on us. Like it was there wasn't a lot of, it was their way or the highway kind of thing. So there was a real firm, that was just the style, I think. And it went right through junior up into pro hockey in my era anyways. And so now it's kind of funny how the new coaching, I think, is more, I would say there's more interaction with the player and what they're like as individuals, and are they, and you try to get to know them a little bit better as a person away from hockey. Whereas when I grew up, the coaches were pretty much, you were a hockey player and you just do what we say, and uh, and don't think too much. just go with our plan. Our plan is the only plan.
Yeah. Well, that
So
was good for some players not to have to think too much. That would be good for me.
yeah. It was just you just showed up the rink and the whistle went and you did what the whistle told you to do.
Yeah.
So that's what it
Now,
was.
how was your route through minor hockey up into when you got drafted?
Well, I played. I lived in Saskatoon for a while too, and I really loved that town. And I was kind of upset when we moved back to Regina because I kind of got, you know how you make friends, and I was playing on a good little hockey team up there. And then my dad got transferred back to Regina, so we moved back to Regina at a key point in my hockey. It's like your second year bantam, which is when you're 14, kind of age 14, 15, and that's when you start to get noticed by kind of the scouts, I guess, from the bigger junior leagues. And so then I realized, you start to realize that you could maybe make a go of this thing, just because you're having success at that age, and then everything kind of just takes care of itself after that. Like the Regina Pats kind of came calling, and I wound up playing for them a bit. But then I actually got a scholarship offer to go to Wisconsin, and so I took that up. A full scholarship which was kind of, a lot of the guys, a lot of my friends didn't do that. They stayed and they just played, their junior hockey. So but my mom and dad were kind of, education was important to us all, and the junior hockey back then, a lot of kids would just, go to grade 10, which is your second year of high school. And then once you got your grade 10, and you were legally, that was enough in Saskatchewan. If you wanted to quit, you could. And so I, it was kind of weird watching some of my buddies that I thought were pretty smart kids. Maybe they weren't the best students, and they were just quitting school because they were going to be superstar hockey players, and they were 16 years old and no longer in school, which I think was a mistake in my opinion. And then I do see some of these guys that did that, and it didn't work out that great for them, unless they did play, 20 years in the NHL and made a whole boatload of money. But that's so rare. Um, so I was really happy. I went down to Wisconsin and I spent 2 years there, and then came back. I wound up getting drafted and played in Detroit and all those different teams in the NHL. So then I kind of I always wanted to get my degree, so I went back. I kept going back to school in the summer and stuff, and I got a degree, and then I actually got a master's degree in business. So, but that was going to school after, as an adult. So when you can kind of concentrate a little more, there's less distractions.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
kind of fluffed away those years in the NHL, buddy.
yeah,
343 games. You just went, oh, those years in the NHL.
yeah.
303 games, Mike. That's pretty impressive.
Well, you know what? It's funny. As a as a player myself, I don't think of it. I always think, oh, I wish I could have played more. I wish I could have done better. I wish I would have had a better career. I wish I would have. Because then you see the guys that play 1,000 games, and then you see the guys that won Stanley Cups, and so I wouldn't say it's envy. It's just kind of I don't know. It's just an inner kind of, you feel like you missed something, or you missed, maybe what could you have done better, or what could I have done differently. And so yeah, you kind of second guess what happened. But then at the same time, the more, as I get a little older and I get a little more, I can look at it more with an open mind. I just think, injuries play a large part of it. I had knee surgery, I had the shoulder blown out, and I had some concussions, not a ton, but enough of them to make you kind of slow you down a little bit. Not slow you down mentally. I wouldn't say that. I never had the concussions where I really had a lot of mental issues or anything, but I had, you're out of the lineup for a while, and then you got to find your feet back again, when you get back. And and then when you're on the bubble, I call it the bubble, when you're kind of for I think in Detroit and in Pittsburgh, I was a real solid player where I knew I was in the lineup every night. But when I got to New York Rangers, it was kind of they had signed a lot of European players, and we just had a huge roster, and it was kind of, you're in and out of the lineup very easily. It was just like you didn't even have to play badly, and you might not dress the next night. So that got to be stressful, I have to say. And then you start doing a little time in the minors, for sometimes what you think is for no reason. Oh, we're sending you down. Oh, really? Oh, okay. I scored last game. Why are you sending me down? Oh, we signed a new Swedish player and da da da. So that's tough. That's tough mentally to go through that, because you can imagine if you're at a normal job, and then your boss was saying, "Oh, we're sending you to this town tomorrow." Yeah, your wife lives here and your kids, yeah, but we're going to send you to this town, and we're also going to cut your pay by about threefold or fourfold. So it's hockey's a tough life unless you're one of the guys that's just in the groove and just going, and that's the kind of guys we read about and we see in the press. They have a pretty easy run sometimes. I wouldn't call it an easy run, but they're great players and they just roll with it, and they have great careers, and they don't have, when they're done, they don't have a lot of regrets. It's a pretty, but I would say that's one in 20 NHLers kind of has that kind of a ride. The rest are on a little bit of a daily slog.
But I think about, I mean, a guy like you who got drafted and who played over 300 games in the NHL, you're still a minority, when you look at guys who play
Yeah.
professional hockey, right? From the guys who, when you said when Bantam was your pivotal time for you, that was same thing for me. I had a couple
Yep.
of injuries that, coaches, I was starting to get looked at around 14, 15, and then I had a partially dislocated hip, and that slowed me down. And that was basically that's it. I just lost a lot of pace. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, look, I'm just one of like hundreds of kids that went through that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
having like hockey just took its toll on the bodies at such a young age. But I managed to kind of just like, go to the UK. I had a British passport. I had some really fun years there. Um,
Yeah.
and it was good. And I learned an awful lot about life and everything, and how much I loved hockey. I think that was
Yeah.
it. Like you say, it's probably the toughest sport to make it pro in. I think when they do the 32 teams in the NHL, and then you look globally around the world and how many hockey players there are, and how many slots there are,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
toughest game. Plus,
Well,
it's
I
all
even, and when I played, it was 20, were there 21 teams or something? It was an odd number, I think. So you got less teams, and they, uh, and now when I look at the rosters, they're carrying, a lot of them carry through the whole year 30 guys, right? And so
Mhm.
when I played, they would just run with 20, and and then they would send guys to the minors, the extra guys, and they just play there. But when I look at guys, I look at the Vegas Knights, for instance. They got eight defensemen on their roster. We never had 8 defensemen on our rosters. We'd have 6, and then if a guy got hurt, they'd call a guy up. So there's a lot more. There actually are a lot more jobs in the NHL now. But saying that, I think there's such an influx of European in the league now, and the Americans have gotten strong. And so then if you look at the number of Canadians in the NHL, it's always, I think it's always going to be the highest percentage. It usually is, or it's getting, but the U.S. is getting close. And
Yeah.
then Europe is taking probably 20% of the spots now, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah. And Russia, obviously.
With what you're doing, getting guys, are you in with your camps? Are you getting ready guys ready for college, NCAA stuff, or?
Well, our guys are, because they're high school. Well, some of them to go college route, but like we have the grade 9. Our biggest group is the grade 9 group, which would be the kids that are going into their Bantam draft year. So they're trying to get drafted to the Western Hockey League out here, which is the major junior. the Regina Pats and all that. But it's so different now. When I played junior hockey, there was a protected list, and they kind of protected the guys in their own zone and in their own city. So when I played on the Regina Pats and we went to the Memorial Cup, we had a hell of a team. We had like 13 guys right from Regina. They're guys I grew up with, so it was a real tight group of guys, right? But now the Regina Pats I think they have one or two guys from Regina. The rest are from all over Canada or all over Western Canada.
And Europe too.
Yeah, and then they take two. Yeah, we never had Europeans on our team. They took 2 Euros, and then we didn't even have Americans, and now they can take 2 Americans. So, or I think you can even have more than that, Americans. So, but it's funny. I went to a Regina Pats game the other night, and there's a kid that played, and he's got exceptional status. So he's kind of like the next Maddox Schultz is his name. Anyways, you'll probably hear about him. He's the best probably player. I've coached some guys that have gone to the NHL, but this guy is a real. He got exceptional status, which is what Crosby got and what Jonathan Taves got, and I think the other guy Tavares, when they were young, they were allowed to go play at a real high level at a very young age. But you have to get Hockey Canada has to endorse that for you. So we have this kid that I coached all last year, and now he's playing for the Regina Pats at the age of 15, and I thought he was the best player on the ice, and he's 15, and he just amazing hockey player. He's an interesting guy. If you can believe it, his father and mother at one time worked on a cruise ship as figure skaters. Can you believe that? Yeah, and then he was a young baby going around with them on some cruise ship, and then his dad coaches power skating, and he used to be a figure skater, but he's all about edging, and this kid can skate like I've never seen anything like it, but he can do it all. Anyway, so that kid, I watched him play, and he just about tied the game. They lost by a goal, but I couldn't believe he was out on the ice when they needed to tie the game, and he rang one off the crossbar. And he's 15 playing against 20-year-olds, which is very difficult,
Yeah.
So kind of cool.
So with the fact that teams are becoming like they're everyone's looking outside of their city, everyone's looking to try and put the best product on the ice. But do you think the fact that you can get Europeans playing, players from other cities, is it good for the game? Is it good for the team? Or was it better when it was more centralized and local?
I think there's a little benefit with both. I mean, I don't think it's really helped the crowds or anything. Like last year, the Regina Pats, for instance, in my hometown, they didn't have a very good team, and they got a pretty big rink, and it was you could have shot a cannon off and not hit anyone in there. It's just like. I mean, I don't even know if their moms and dads were going to the games. You know what I mean? Like it was that empty, but there you go. You got a team with one player from the local city, and now it's a bad team. So you don't get that. I don't know. You don't get that community support behind because you know what happens. Kids get watched as they're young, and they kind of develop a bit of a following with all the other teams, parents, and everything. And then when one kid or two or three make the big Regina Pats club, well, some of those people keep going to watch them. You know what I mean? Like they become fans over the years of these kids, but now those same kids just get drafted and they play against the Pats, like they're, So I'm not a big fan of it, but I guess it makes for parity because there's centers. Now there's places in Canada that don't develop a lot of players, but they draft good players. So they they might have the best players out of Regina playing, and they don't really even have a youth team there, But they fill their rink with an entertaining team, So I guess it spreads hockey around a little more, And something to be said for playing in another city. Yeah. It's kind of it's a learning experience. But then these kids have to go away when they're 15 and 16 years old. They got to move away from home, So,
When you I'm going to go into 1990, 91, you ended up in Durham. Mm-hmm. How do you go from 343 games in the NHL to across the pond? I think you had a little bit of time in Germany, right?
Yeah, I played at that time. Yeah. Canada had a national team, and what that was it was a touring group of guys, and so it was we had a lot of guys that had played in the NHL, and then we had a lot of guys that played in the American League, but they were guys that were kind of on the end of their NHL contract. Like I was still signed by the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they weren't. I'd had a knee. I'd had knee surgery the year before, and it was quite extensive surgery. And I wasn't at the pace to play in the NHL anymore. I don't think. Like I kind of got going a bit when I was in Durham because we played so much, and then my knee kind of found itself again, and I felt pretty good, you know. But for a while there, I was kind of slowed down, and so then I was kind of looking at maybe I'll retire. I don't know. And then I kind of was interested in coaching. So
Mhm.
my when I went to Durham, and it was kind of Paul Smith was the coach, and when they signed me, they said we'd like you to help coach a bit, like because that was kind of like I was looking for a place to go where I could help. I'm not say coach on the bench because I still was going to play, but if I could help with some of the younger guys and you know and da da da. So then when I got to Durham, it was kind of like I started playing, and then there I don't know, we had a really good team, and then so I didn't need to coach those guys. So and then Paul Smith, he was just a I just loved playing for him in a way because he was just he would play some games and then you know he's running around like a psycho out there. Oh geez, it was wild. It was a real eye opener, the whole thing. But I really enjoyed my time in Durham. I got there and we had a real strong team. And you know what that rink, we just filled that rink, and it was kind of a buzz in there. It was fun. It was fun. And it was never about the money or anything. It was just, oh, I'm still playing hockey, and I loved it. You know, it was like all of a sudden I kind of found a place where there was no pressure really. I guess there's pressure because we wanted to win everything, but at the same time we just went about our business during the week, and we had real super fun at our practices. And then when the games came, we played hard, and we had real competitive guys on that team. You know, those Geordie boys, they go pretty hard. I like those. I still just have, you know, I have friends over there I met, and we're still friends to this day. But you know, it's tough. You live across a pond, and it's not that easy, and you kind of lose touch with guys a little bit. But I sure loved my time in Durham. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about. I reference it a lot. You know, hockey in the '90s, the golden age, I guess, with the three imports and the reclassified and dual national, and then just a ton of Brits that would just skate and hit and fight and have fun, and you know,
Yeah.
there was a real magic to hockey there, and that's when I started playing. I was in Sheffield's first year in 1991, and the Isle of Wight when they started, and that's how I started my career there. So it was 90
Yeah.
same year that you were, and it was just that's what I remember. I remember practicing late on Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and
After the public skating, because they
after
had to get
public
there.
say, and with
Yeah.
like a really damp roof on the Isle of Wight, it would be like dripping because of the
Yeah. Yeah.
concrete
Yeah.
and stuff. The changing rooms, even though it was a brand new rink, the changing rooms were already wet with mold,
Oh,
but
oh,
it was just fun. It was just such a great experience, and that's what I really like, Mike, is like, that's what, like, when you look at like Durham and Nottingham and Cardiff at that time,
yeah.
hockey hotbeds, like,
Yeah.
and Murrayfield, so they
Yeah.
were like really where the culture of the game was starting to evolve, because you had guys like you coming over and Fred Perlini and Rick Brabant, like really good
Yeah.
experienced hockey players who, like you said, probably wouldn't mind doing a bit of junior coaching as well, helping out with
Yeah.
kids. So it was such an important time for UK hockey for it to start to create its own identity.
Yeah. And you know, um, that I think what happened when I was over there, the Brits um, started to really come along, like they were almost dragged along to the level of the players that were coming over from Canada. And you know what? And I'll always say this: the the British hockey players my experience with the British hockey players were tremendous work ethic.
Mhm.
They would give her, and like all they needed was a little bit of structure and coaching, and they you know, I mean, they got a lot of natural desire, and they're tough son of a bitches.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of tough kids over there, you know, and I had so much fun with that Durham team. Like we represented the league a few times overseas. Like we went into Czech Republic, and I don't know where the heck we went, Slovakia, and we went to Bratislava once, and where else did we go for? Because we'd won our league, anyways. And we 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 drag all these British boys into these hotels over there in Netherlands or something, and oh wow, we would play hard out there, and those teams, they knew they were in a game. Like I think we played a Norwegian team, and they had one of the I don't know. I think this does that Knutson or something ring a bell?
Canoe.
Uh, yeah, like he was a long-haired, really long blonde-haired guy. He was supposed to be a real top European player. And anyways, we wound up having a brawl with that team, and they ran our goalie over, and then next thing you know, all the Brits are over the bench, and this is crazy for international hockey. Like you just kind of oh well, yeah, this is the kind of what we do over in Britain, but they frowned on it a little bit, but.
It was also the stories in the hotel and the beer drinking after, and
Oh yeah.
I think that
Oh, we had fun. We had
the
fun.
Brits probably had more stories than any other country with regards to, the post game celebrations.
Oh, and then we were at one tournament for a bit. I think we were there for 5 days, and the boys found there was some room in the hotel that just was open all the time, and there was a phone in there. So that all the boys were phoning back to Britain on this phone, and you know how much international calls were back then. It was like,
Yeah.
so then as we're leaving, they're trying to figure out who made all these calls to Britain, and of course, well, it was us, but we denied it. We all denied. So it was just a lineup of guys going in this room to call their girlfriends and wives at the time or whoever. It was stuff like that. The Brits were, and then we wound up taking I forget, one time we were at the bar in some town, and there were all these bikes parked in front of the bar, and we took them all back to our hotel, 20 of them. They weren't ours. Didn't really steal them because we didn't keep them, but we did take them from a bar to the hotel. And
Well, if it was in Amsterdam, you're okay because all bikes are, if it's not locked up, you can take it. But I
yeah,
don't know about that.
yeah, I don't know. I think this was more in in another country. I don't know. Anyways, it
Okay,
didn't go over.
so,
These bikes were actually owned by some individual.
yeah,
They weren't the town bikes. Yeah.
yeah, just some really nice
Didn't lock them
European.
because there was no such thing
No,
as theft.
because no idiots are going to come around and steal them
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
show up.
We did.
Yeah. Mike, so you're enjoying Durham as a player, and then I imagine what was because then the next move was to Nottingham, right? And that's when you
Yeah,
started to take on the coaching roles.
yeah. And then, well, you know what happened? My back was. I had back issues, and it was. So when I was in Durham, just to play, it got to the point where it was just getting to be. I had to take some time off to get it right. I was getting cortisone injections every Thursday morning, and then that would allow me to play on the weekend. I'd feel great. Oh wow, I feel like I'm 100% again. But then Monday morning, I'd wake up and I could hardly get out of bed. It was so after the 2 games, and then the cortisone it wears off after 3, 4, 5 days. So then I would kind of not practice on Tuesday night, and then I'd go back for that cortisone injection on Thursday. I'd practice on the Thursday night, and then I'd play Friday and Saturday or Saturday, Sunday. And then it became, so I had probably 30 cortisone injections into my lower spine over a year and a half at Durham, and it just became too much. I just thought, this is crazy. So I went back to Canada and kind of deciding what I was going to do. I had a job with a big brewery there for a bit, and then all of a sudden, I put my resume out just to coach, and Nottingham called and said, "We'd love you to be our coach." So, anyways, that I went over there with no intention of playing again, but I actually wound up playing when our imports were injured. I registered myself as a extra import kind of thing. So I really love Nottingham too. Like we bought a house there, my wife and and we had I love that town. And you know what, it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was really difficult, but I came in after Alex Dampier was there, and he was kind of like the guy that put Nottingham on the map a little bit as a coach. So then I came in, so everything I did, was compared to what Alex would have done, so that was kind of tough at the start. But then I kind of found my own way there. Like I kind of wanted to have, we had a good group of Brits there, for one thing, and then our budget wasn't huge, but it was okay. So I always, I tried to bring in some kind of good, steady. We weren't going to get the superstar imports, but we brought in the good, steady ones. But then I went back into my playbook and realized one of the best players I ever played with over there was Rick Brabant, and one of my favorite teammates of all time. And a lot of guys, Rick rubs people wrong, but him and I kind of got along. And you know what, and I laughed at all the kind of stuff he did that pissed everyone else off, because I just kind of I that's the way I am. I just let it roll off my, and I just would kind of smile, and I go, "Oh, Rick, what are you doing?" He was like the most super competitive guy ever, but I wanted him on my team, so
Yeah.
I brought him in as, and then I brought him in to be my assistant coach and help me out a bit in Nottingham. So he did, and he's just so damn competitive. He would be up half the night thinking about the game against Sheffield or whoever we were playing, and then he would have an idea of what we should try to do differently, and da da da. And so we bounced ideas off each other, and he brings a work ethic too, like Ricky. He brings it, right. Like I'll say that he's one of the hardest when the puck is dropped. He's game on. I never saw him take a game off, and he was that guy that he'd try to get a goal when we're up 7. We'd be up 7-0 when I played with him in Durham, and there's a minute left on the clock, and he's trying to make it 8, and he's trying to make it 8 as hard as if it's the Stanley Cup final. I used to just go, oh, I'd be back on the bench kind of laughing. We got this one, boys. And Rick would be jumping over the boards trying to bag another goal. Anyways, that was him. He had no way to shut it off. I used to bring him over at Christmas. We'd have dinner at our house, and my mom and dad would be there. And next thing you know, we'd be playing cards, and he's like arguing with my dad over a card game. You know what I mean? Like he has to win the card game too. Like.
I always tell this story about Rick because when I was on Sky Sports and it was up in Manchester, and I was doing a live bit from in the tunnels.
Yeah.
And I was and he comes by, and he was always really good to me because he always gave a good interview and stuff like that. And I got along really well with Rick. But he's pretty funny and jokey, and he just quickly just flicks his stick, right? And he just right in the sack. I'm live. And he just gets my right one. And it's just starting to woof woof. And he just walked off giggling, and I'm trying to do a live spot on TV. But that's my Rick Brabant story that I'll constantly tell, is that
Hey, I have to tell one. This is my funniest Rick Brabant story, because this is just him. He's such a. Anyways, we're playing in the Wembley final. We're playing Murrayfield Racers in the final, and okay, so I might have the team wrong, and if I do, it was Peterborough that we might have been playing. But anyways, long story short, it's late in the game, and it's actually a pretty tight game, and we have a real good team, but it's like the ice it's warm, it's a tough game. Anyways, Rick's in front of our net, and a puck pops up in front of him in the air, and he's going to bat it down with his hand, but Mike O'Connor on our team, Rick's team, is going to bat the puck out with his stick out away from our net, and he swings his stick like you would a cricket bat, or and he hits Rick right in the mug with his stick. Okay, and so now Rick's lip is just he looks like Daffy Duck, and the blood is just pouring out of his mouth, and he's mad as hell at Mike O'Connor. So anyways, we go over to somehow Mike O'Connor convinces the ref that Rick got hit by one of the Whitley guys, or one of the other team. So he goes over, he brings the ref over. Look at what's going on. Because we're getting the raw end of the deal penalty wise, we think, and probably we weren't, but we think we're getting messed around by the ref. So look at Rick just got smashed right in the face with a stick. And you know what Rick says right to the ref and Mike? He goes, "You did it, you asshole." That's my favorite, because I'm thinking, wouldn't the guy go, "Yeah, Paul,
5-minute major for blood."
Yeah, Tony Hand hit me in the face. No, he goes, "You did it, you." And the ref just looks at these two guys and just skates away laughing. Like it's probably Taggart or somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Anyways, that was a funny one. I still. And so we won this championship, and then we're trying to drink champagne, and he honestly, Rick Brabant looked like Daffy Duck. His lips were like gigantic. Like I've never seen anything like it. Oh, it was funny. That was.
I don't feel too bad about my story now.
No, no. Oh, it was good.
Mike, you also mentioned, okay, so at that time, Damps goes from Sheffield. Sheffield are just becoming this new arena team, and they're getting the funding, they're growing. You've come into really the Nottingham Panthers, who were seen as like, one of the top teams for quite a long time. Paul Adey's there, a really good team, really good hockey crowd. Playing at the stadium was a difficult place to play. That rivalry is really kicking off. And then
Yeah, that was
you're
yeah.
coming in really at the beginning of the Sheffield Nottingham rivalry. What was that like?
Yeah, you know what? We we kind of they had a team like if I look back when Damps had Sheffield and I had Nottingham, I think Damps had he kind of had like the Shudras and the Priestleys, like they went for a real skilled. They were really skilled, and they had the luxury of having quite a few of the dual nationals. You know, the Canadians in their lineup, like Cranston, I think was there, Timmy Cranston, and anyways, they had a pretty imposing lineup, and they brought in Andre Malo, who was another guy with a passport, and I had him actually in Nottingham. Like, so some of these guys bounced around, but we what I tried to do in order to combat all that skill is we tried to bring in guys that just played hard and played kind of an aggressive style. So if you watched our team play, what I tried to do was get our guys to buy into kind of a short shift, high energy mentality. So our guys were going over the bench a little quicker than the other teams would do, and then coming back and making sure we're always fresh. And then we used our Brit players extensively, like Simon Hunt and I had, geez, I'm trying to think of some of the good little Brits we had there. We had,
Hey, Smurf.
yes, Smurf, yeah, my buddy Smurf, yeah, and you know what? And these guys, they were really good team players. Like they bought into what we were trying to do, and so we had lots of success. I wish we would have had a little more success in winning like the national championship or whatever. Like the final game at Wembley, we lost the. Sheffield, I think, twice, and once was in double overtime and it went to a shootout, which, in all honesty, you're looking at their five guys for the shootout, and our five guys just aren't quite as skilled. So I'm like, oh man, here we go. This is going to be a little tougher. So I never wanted it to go to a shootout. Let's put it that way. I want to try to win it on the ice in the war. But we won. You know what? We had this kind of run in the Benson and Hedges. And
Yeah.
I don't know and that Benson and Hedges was a good tournament, and
Mhm.
I don't know I think we won three of them out of four or something, and it was kind of like, wow, this is kind of our little. It's like in a way like the FA Cup or something
Yeah,
of
yeah.
football. So that kind of put us on the map
I
there, and
remember all the free cigarettes.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, you know what I remember is they used to give us a giant magnum of really good champagne, the good stuff that the orange, whatever it is,
Oh,
it's
the
Mums or Dom Perignon, but Couché or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's the big, and you see it at Formula One when they hand out the champagne, they're spraying it around, the same stuff. Well, somehow that always seemed to come to my house, that bottle. The
Laurent
guy,
Perrier. That was it. The yellow
yeah,
Laurent Perrier was the
yeah,
Magnum.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was very good. Yeah, so that
yeah.
was fun. Yeah, so I mean, I love my time in Nottingham, and then it kind of Neil Black came in as the owner, and you know, I really liked Neil in a lot of ways, but there were some things that I didn't get along with him, and then I'm such a stubborn bugger. He kind of was messing me around on the contract that I was on personally, like so. And I'll just spit it out. That's what happened. He just a lot of the stuff that I'd signed was not being agreed to, and it wasn't like all about the money, but it was just little things. It was like housing stuff, and where I was going to stay and all that. And he was moving the goalposts around. After the goalposts were agreed where they were supposed to be. So,
Right.
and I have pride and stuff like that. And I think growing up in the NHL, the one thing that I kind of, maybe it's a fault, but when you sign an NHL contract, you get exactly what you're promised. Like they never deviate. And I mean, you can be a terrible player, you can get hurt, you get paid exactly what you're supposed to get on the day you're supposed to get it, and it's kind of it's an honor thing, right? So
Yeah.
I just didn't agree with having everything like I'm in a constant negotiation with my own contract. So then Sheffield they said, well, we'll match what you got in Nottingham if you come over, and they were looking to change their coach, and which was crazy, and that was a big jump because that was our big rivalry. But you know what? I think there was a mutual respect. Like I respected Sheffield, what they were doing with their crowds and I love their fan base, even though they hated me. I love the way they filled that rink and they were passionate. And it was just down the road. And so, you know, the more I thought of it, I thought, okay, I'll, I'll resign in Nottingham because, you know, you're breaking that. So the contract was broken. So it was easy it was easy for me to, well, it wasn't that easy because the league kind of tried to step in. It was kind of a crazy time. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? I think I was 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks to get it all lined up so I could go to Sheffield. Or for a while, I forget who the guy running the show was in the league, but he was trying to put the stop on that. And I think Neil Black was trying to put the stop on it, you know, but I had to do it. It was just a matter of principle for me. You know, it was like, you know.
So this is at a time, again, I'm going to get to the rivalry between them because Sheffield have taken Dampier. Now they've taken you. A lot of the players have so there's this deep rooted hatred, I guess, that's becoming part of, you know, and people will talk about it today. They actually hate each other, which I think really hard in hockey. Like, how can anybody hate anybody? But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, at that time, Nottingham had Alex Dampier, it had you, and then all of a sudden Sheffield attracts you guys. And now the league's starting to become more professional. You're getting you know, it's the talk of the Super League starting. Everyone's wants to ramp things up. TV is in it now because I'm now there doing the Rinkside Report.
Yeah.
So hockey's really gaining some momentum. So you've got this big M1 rivalry, you've got the more professionalism, and then you as a man who played in the NHL, who was a real player, how did you start to equip yourself as being, you know, like probably one of the most winningest head coaches in terms of trophies in UK history? How did you get ready for that? How did you prepare? Was it just something that came naturally to you?
Yeah. Well, you know, like I've always had you know, and I think anybody that plays at a high level, first of all, you've got a real competitive spirit. So you want to win. So I think I took the coaching really seriously as far as what we did on the ice and our on ice product. But one thing I think I was always a bit of a player with the guys. And then I think like for the most part, my players really enjoyed playing for me because I thought like, okay, the boys, they're going to be tired. Okay. I would go, okay, we're going into Cardiff tomorrow night. It's going to be a tough one Sunday night. You know what, boys, you pull this one out of your hat and it's 2 days off. Oh, my dog's going to growl at the neighbor's dog. I've got a dog. I had a dog named Sheffield and unfortunately he passed away. And, they both share one common denominator. They hate my neighbor's bulldogs. And the bulldogs come down.
Yeah.
And if they walk past my window, both of them seem to not like it. They growl. But anyways, my one dog's name was Sheffield, and now my little girl, the girl, same breed as Stella. And she's a nice Stella. You're a good girl. Okay, well, she stopped growling now. The old guy. But back to that. Like I think I was, and if players would talk about their coaches, I know that I've talked to a few of the guys that I coach, and they go, "Oh, Blaisdell, you were the best players coach because you knew what we were going, you know." And I would do that often. I go, okay, and then I used to do this, which the guys like too. Like if we went into London and beat McSorley's team, I go, boys, we're heading to the pub, and guess what? It's instead of sitting in there for a half hour, we got about an hour and a half or 2 hours, which. So these guys would just have so much. Like I tried to make it fun when we were successful. So I remember the one time David Sims was the general manager. Kind of, I kind of treated him like he was a general manager, but he didn't have that title in Sheffield. And I said to the guys, I was looking at our schedule, and I said, okay, we've got 10 games coming up in November. What I'm going to do is for every day, or for every one of those 10 games, you're going to get a day off. And we're going to take it. There's a 2-week spot where we didn't have any games looking forward in I think it was late December. So anyways, we put it right up on the blackboard. At the time we had a board or a whiteboard, and we wrote in the games, and then a big check mark would go on the wins. and every win was going to get these guys a day off in a row, not a day off on its own, in a row. Like, and so, man, these guys went to town, and we went on a roll. They were playing so hard in these games because they started to see this is a chance for, like, Shane McCosh was going to go back to Toronto on the plane, and with 10 days you can go back to Canada. You can go anywhere you want. And then other guys were going, I'm going to go on a ski trip into Switzerland, or I'm going to do this. And so I kept telling it. And then as these games were getting won, David Sims was going, "Oh, please, we can't let all the team disappear for 10 days. Like, we have sponsors meetings and stuff to do." And I go, "Oh man, this is what." So anyways, it happened, and they got them all. And so 10 days was, so I remember I went to the Canary Islands with my wife and my kids, and we had just a wonderful time. Like, everybody, so the minute that last game ended, wherever the hell we were, I can't remember. Guys weren't even getting on the bus. They'd arranged rides to the airport, and they were gone. Like, so the whole Sheffield Steelers disappeared for 10 whole days, and so you can imagine they have the booster club meetings and stuff. And no one's there. Not a guy. They're
Just
gone.
Dave Sims. I bet you Simsy loved it though. He had to do it
Oh
all.
yeah, but then okay, so then I'm kind of nervous. I'm going, oh God, these guys are gone now, 10 days. And I said to them, I said, don't come. We're going to have a real hard skate when you get back, and don't abuse this. Like, if you're going to go, get to the gym, keep your cardio up and stuff. Like, we've had a hard schedule here, but now we got the finishing half and we want to win the league. Well, that was okay. So that team won the Grand. Just so you know, that team won the Grand Slam. We won it all. And that was a hell of a team. Like, but anyways, they came back and we just went on a bigger roll. Like, I don't know, they loved it. Like, they all got refreshed. Like, the season's long, and so as a player, I know that a break like that is like something, like, it's for your mind, right? Like, it's just kind of, you get away from the rink, you get away from the slog, the skating every day, the da da da, and then all of a sudden you're sitting on a beach somewhere, or you're with your girlfriend in Paris or something, and then you get back, and then you're kind of thankful to, maybe not thankful to me, but you're thankful to the organization, and then you want to do well for those people. So
I think it's like because I've been looking at a lot of coaching styles over the last couple of years, and looking at coaches who like the discipline coaches, like the Mark Crawford and I don't even know why I'm thinking about the names, Babcock, like these guys.
yeah.
Like they created this real fear environment to very winning coaches. Scotty Bowman was even a fear-based coach, but Mike Keenan, these guys created a culture of fear where players just didn't want to make any mistakes. Again, coaches, NHL coaches who had a job, Tortorello, I know he's coaching women, but again, they created this culture of like, don't fuck up. And, and then the science now behind it, Mike, is that, like, if you can create a culture where guys are they're okay, they don't feel any fear about making mistakes, they can push themselves harder, they can be more creative, they can actually work harder because they're not in any fear of making mistakes. So why is it that these coaches have had why were these coaches been given so much time, with players, when we know that it's creating a culture where that you created, where guys can feel free to express themselves. They still will work their ass off for their coach, but they're not in fear of getting yelled at or being singled out or punitive punishment, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think my opinion is the guys that run with that, if you want to call it a fear mentality, or like, my way or the highway, and don't ever question me, and it's super disciplined. Well, you see that happen sometimes in the NHL, when a team that's got a lot of really, really good players, but they're underachieving. And then when they make a coaching change, that's who a lot of times they bring in. They bring in a hard-nosed, no nonsense guy. And it works for a while, because everybody's kind of on their toes and everybody gets going and dialed in. Like, I think Sutter and Calgary was a classic one. They Calgary Flames had a real good team, and then they kind of went south for a while. They weren't playing well, and they brought in Sutter, and he's supposed to be really tough on guys. And anyways, they want to win a Stanley Cup, but then those guys wear themselves out, or they wear out their welcome pretty quick. I think Tortorelli maybe a little bit. He's a guy. He comes in and he usually has real success at the start, and then after a while he alienates enough guys, and then he winds up getting fired. He keeps bouncing around, right? But he's definitely good short term. The guy that I really like is Cooper in Tampa Bay, and he's supposed to be. He's just really like he's friends with everybody on the team, but he's got a, he's pretty stern. Like he was coaching Team Canada, and they beat the U.S. at that last competition there, the Four Nations Cup or whatever. And I went to the final game, and it was just a wonderful hockey game in Boston. Anyways, they beat the U.S. on their own soil, and it was really exciting, and I loved it. But Cooper, we wound up getting into a bar after, and the Canada guys were in there, and Cooper was in there, and he's talking to these guys, and one of the guys said, "Yeah, we raised our eyebrows when in that early game you gave Sid the kid shit in front of everyone, and you benched him for a couple shifts." And he goes, "Well, I was just kind of sending a little message, and then these guys, you could just tell. I guess he's just a great guy, and Tampa Bay's just had such good success. They kind of went off the rails a bit last year, but they had a little bit of injuries. But he's an excellent coach, and he's a guy that just gets to know his guys, cares about them. He'd be the guy that would drive right over to the guy's house if he has a family issue. He's the guy that would. He's just a helpful, wonderful guy, and the Tampa guys love him, and they perform for him, And I think that's where coaching should be going. I really believe. I think these guys are so good and they're so professional, anyways. Now, when you get that NHL level, that real sternness only works for a little bit. Like you're still they all got pride, so they're gonna go out there and perform and their best. But if you can get someone, if everybody's pulling on the same rope and everybody seems to enjoy, the practices are enjoyable, and it's not like like he's not stupid. Oh, some coaches, we stunk the joint out, and now we're going to skate the crap out of these guys the next day at practice. Well, Cooper's the kind of guy I go, well, we're tired. We just played 4 games and 7 nights across the country, and we flew jet lag. So all of a sudden he'd be the guy to go, we're taking 2 days off, boys. Go down to the beach, put the sunglasses on, chuck the Frisbee around. We'll see you on Wednesday. We'll get back to work, Whereas you get the wrong guy that, we're going to have a 2-hour bag skate because you guys look slow the other night, Well, you got to use your head sometimes,
I think that, the majority of coaches don't coach in the NHL, but you have so I don't know if you remember, but when Hockey Night in Canada would come on and they would have that clip of Don Cherry as a coach with Boston, and he'd be leaning over the boards, and the clips that we would see grow as people watching hockey would always be coaches yelling at the referees or yelling at the players, like smashing a stick because it's what people want to see, right? And then you have people who are learning how to coach by watching people. And I think this has been really detrimental to a lot of like minor hockey coaches, in that they're trying to emulate something that they've seen because they think that that's how to win. And they think that punitive punishment, calling players out, threatening players because they've seen it, at the top levels, they think that that's what's right for them. So what would be your messaging for people who are like volunteering as coaches to, like, right from the kids learn to play up to, minor hockey, where it's like, I still see it, I see coaches calling out even young players, in the Czech Republic here, 9-year-olds are getting yelled at by the coaches here. I wish I could speak Czech because I'd be like, that's kids do not learn when they're in fear. Nobody learns when they're in fear. So don't create an atmosphere of fear, create an atmosphere where you can fall and make mistakes.
Well, you're exactly right, and there's a culture like I know, like I coached a year in the Western Hockey League with the Regina Pats, and we had a very young team that year. So we were picked to finish last in Canada because we had the youngest team in Canada, which is always a junior hockey. If you're too young, it's not a good recipe. So, anyways, that year was kind of the head coach. I probably disagree with him quite often because he was a real disciplinarian, and he was real tough on the kids, and like everything was military almost, you know what I mean? And so I think there's in a situation like that, if I could go back in time, I probably would have voiced my opinion stronger. That we got to let these kids have a little bit of fun, and we got to let them have a little bit of and try to reward them, even though we didn't beat the Brandon Wheat Kings tonight because they're stacked. Well, we can't just go bag skate them the next day because it's it's just like just
They
pounding
already
your
know they
head.
lost. They already feel
That's
bad.
crazy. Like we weren't going to change that outcome by anything we can do as coaches. So now what we got to do is just make them realize that there were some things we can take good out of that game, and it's not always screaming and yelling. I don't think that ever. But there's times when you got to address, if a guy's making the same mistake and he's going to cost your team, you got to address it at the time pretty firmly. But at the same time, I think I see the style of coaching has definitely changed. So the real disciplinarian guys, the real tough guys are kind of getting, I wouldn't say they're getting weeded out, but that's less and less a winning formula. And the winning formula is more interaction with players individually and making them better, like and really analyzing what their film looks like, what they how they perform, and then because they want to be coached. But if you just yell at them when they make a mistake, I think that's a bad recipe. But if you encourage stuff they do good, and then bring them in, I think the kids want individual feedback now. That's what I'm finding. They really want to know what they did right and wrong in the game. And some guys, and it's hard to do as a coach because it takes a lot of time. You got 20 guys, and and then you just played a game, and I'd say 12 of those kids want to talk to you a little bit about their own game, right? And if you start doing that with all of them, you got hours and hours of feedback to give. So I think it's a balance, but that's why you have good assistant coaches, and so that's what I see in good hockey teams have really good assistant coaches that analyze what kids are doing, and then it all feeds back to the head coach. But you're taking a look at so instead of yelling at the kid, just set them aside the next day and show them on film. This is the thing. We never had film when I played as a young kid as much, but now the film doesn't lie usually. it's like, hey, yeah, you did cough the puck up 3 times on one shift. I'll show you, and there it is on tape. But here's what you got to do better. Just as soon as you come around that net, there's the open man. Just move it. Like, there's your guy. You can see he's open. Move the puck, and then the kid goes, "Yeah, you're right." Because once they see it, right? So
You nailed it. You're encouraging a kid to just do better, right? Which is instead of this is what you did wrong, this is what we can work on, this is what we can do better, and this is the message that I'm trying to get to coaches and to players and to parents is like, let's just do better. We know more now. We know that like a fear-based ecosystem, a fear-based culture is detrimental. Kids don't thrive. Coaches don't thrive. We can yell encouragement. We can call stuff out, but in terms of creating that fear, we know you're getting someone who go from 100% to 65% of their ability if they're in fear. So know that doesn't work right now. And I think that I want to move on to you as a parent, because you're a parent of a hockey player too. And what was that like for you in terms of like what you're trying to do now, nurturing? You've been a coach, you've been a player, and then now you're a parent of a hockey player. Because what I've seen a lot in my experience now is coaches are evolving. They're trying to create that culture of human-centered coaching, right? Instead of like fear-based coaching. Coach the human, not the athlete. And they're trying, but then the parents now are trying to live vicariously through their kids. They don't understand that their kid, you've got a better chance of winning the lottery twice than making your kid an NHL hockey player. So what was your motivation, I guess? What was your purpose in being a parent of a hockey player? What did you want from him?
Well, I think, once you've gone through the whole hockey routine as a pro, you kind of have some, obviously you got insight in how the game's supposed to be played, and and what makes a good player and all that. So that's part of it. But also, I think what my goals is when my kid started to play and he became, like it looked like he was going to take a run at hockey as well as a career. But my thoughts were always, it's a stupid thing, and I've heard it at banquets, and guys say, you use hockey, don't let hockey use you. That was a pretty kind of a good slogan, and I kind of took that to heart with him. Whereas that's why he kind of went the college route. I just thought, you know what, this is a chance to develop a little longer. Like instead of just going to junior and playing 70 games a year, which is basically just trying to line a lot of that's trying to line the pockets of the owners. They, like, why would they play that many games in a year at the age of 16, 17 across Canada, And then with playoffs, you're playing almost 100 games. Like it's insane. Like, whereas the college thing, you got a chance to, practice more and develop and blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of the way I looked at it with him. And I always said, I'm very realistic on the numbers, like you spit out. Like it's easier to win the lottery than go play in the National Hockey League. So it's certainly a very special group that get to actually ever go out on the ice in an NHL game, let alone play there, right?
Oh.
So if your whole mindset is I'm going to go play in the NHL, then you got a lot of tough road ahead of you, because what you just want to do is try to enjoy every stepping stone that you're going up the hockey ladder. Try to enjoy it and get the most out of it for your own personal, not personal achievement, but just
Growth.
just personal growth and actually just being, a happy person, right? Like I think that's the real key. Like you've got kids playing and they're so stressed about trying to get to the next level, and they should be just, I got to be winning the midget hockey tournament scoring, or I got to do this, or I got to do that, or I got to be the top scorer on my team, or I got to be at least in the top 2 on my team, or whatever. Whereas what I'm seeing more is it's just a long journey of development, and the more you can kind of spend time in a happy place while that's going on, like in a place where you feel fulfilled and you feel like you're getting better and you feel like, and so, because there's going to be times when it's tough, and I see it all the time when a kid just rips it up at a real lower level, like what I would call like where he's playing like he's the big fish in the little pond, and then he goes out to the big pond, and all of a sudden he's just a little fish in that big pond, and he's not getting the goals, or he's not getting the love. He's not getting the, what I mean? He's not getting the success. Like he's not going out and getting a hat trick every game. All of a sudden he's fighting for ice. Right.
Yeah.
And so that can change, your whole, how you feel about yourself, and how how you get up in the morning. Are you going to attack the day with, kind of like with a good attitude and you're happy, or are you just always thinking something's going to go wrong? Right. Like, I'm, and that's where I think feedback to them, and sometimes a kid's got to realize that but he has to get positive feedback that he's in a position, that he's in a tougher league now, and he's a young player on the team maybe, and so you're not going to get that responsibility. But what we got to do is we got to keep your growth, we got to keep you getting better. So now your focus has to be, am I going to get better every day in practice? And then, okay, now I'm a little better in that game, and I got a little more ice time, or I maybe, but then that's where the honesty has to come from the coach to say, hey, this is your role right now. You're just going to kill some penalties, and you're going to play on the third line, and you're going to get, but I need you to have energy when you're out there, and I need you to, I need you to be positive and banging the shin pads of the guys that are, playing ahead of you, instead of being this is what I see. The kids start moping, and they don't even want to be on the team because they're not they're not the superstar anymore. And that's where coaching, that's where you get away from the whiteboard and the tactics and what we're going to do on our power play. That's the other side of coaching, is getting everybody on that team to feel like there's a purpose at the rink every day, and that we're all trying to get better, and there's different roles. That's the thing. I think good coaches can make guys still feel good even though they don't have the significant role on the team, whereas some coaches don't care about those guys. They only care about the top 3 or 4 guys in their team, and the rest are just a bunch of garbage that you just they just fill the roster, right? And we just interchange those guys. We don't care about those guys. We'll bring another guy up from our minor league team, or we'll do this, we'll do that. And those are the teams that go south, right? Like, because they don't have that buy-in. That's why I look at like the Florida Panthers. That Maurice must do a good job, because he's got everybody dialed in. They just won two cups in a row, and I know they're stacked. They got a good team, but to win 2 cups in a row and be in the final the year before that,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta be getting every guy on a buy-in, and they gotta be, and that's at a pro level, but you can take that back into like youth in a way, because I think the youth teams, if your bottom guys that are probably your least skilled, and they don't play quite as much, because let's face it, guys want to win, coaches want to win, and I don't, there's an equal ice time rule in a lot of these towns now, like everybody gets the same amount of ice time, and the parents are up there with stopwatches watching to make sure their kid gets the exact amount. No, it's true, it's true, which I think is wrong. But anyways, like that's where you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well,
you
it's
know
not how like I get it when kids are young, but like as you're saying, hockey, it's you've got four lines of hockey. You got four lines of forwards, and everyone's got a role. And yeah, your fourth line might not get that ice time, but if they're called
yeah,
upon, to go out there and to bang and crash and not get scored on, then they
yeah,
provide a pivotal role in the team for everyone else to get a bit of a breather,
yeah,
and so I agree with you. I think that coaches need to coach all 20 as a unit, and
yeah,
everyone's got to have the buy into it, and everyone has to have purpose. And I want to kind of lead into this now, Mike, is that as a hockey player, I only ever played two games with you, and that was the Sheffield Steelers 20-year thing.
yeah.
That's the only time we were ever on the ice together. So I wasn't that great.
No, you weren't bad.
I was a better TV presenter than I was a hockey player.
Well,
but but um but I still was a hockey player. I played since I was 5 years old,
yeah,
and I loved the game, and I always knew I had a role. And it was, yeah, in the lower leagues I could score goals, but when I started playing in the higher leagues, it was just bang and crash and don't get scored on. Give your first, second lines a bit of a breather, and I had a role, and I loved the changing room. I loved the stories. I loved the back of the bus. These are the memories and the stories that even now at 54 years old, I'm still talking to the guys who I played with 20, 30, 35 years ago, even some guys from minor hockey in Saskatoon. We still talk, we still make fun of the old coaches, and
yeah,
we just there's something about being a hockey player in that environment where it's a pretty physical game, and you form these bonds and these connections.
yeah,
Now, I
yeah,
told you my stories that I really struggled in the late 90s when I had to make that decision of not playing for the Guildford Flames anymore and having to go full time into TV. And I
yeah,
really struggled with that, like that loss of identity as a hockey player, because it was always like, oh, Nick, you're the guy who plays hockey. It wasn't like, or you're Nick, the hockey player, not the guy Nick who plays hockey. And then all of a sudden I
yeah,
was on TV, and that was like winning the lottery because I was getting a lot of money. I was getting travel, Savile Row suits, and I was like like Gabby Logan was my co-presenter, and I was hanging out in the nightclubs in Soho, and I was like, "Oh, you're on Sky Sports,"
yeah,
and I felt, Mike, I felt like, fuck, I'm just some kid from Pontiac, Saskatchewan, who grew up in Saskatoon, and all of a sudden I'm on TV, and I had all these fears like, oh, I don't deserve this, and I don't belong here. And I never drank or did drugs as a hockey player. I was have a couple of beers after a game. I never drank alcoholically or anything like that. But it was
yeah,
when I stopped playing hockey and I went right into TV, and I had a lot of money. I had all this stuff, and then all of a sudden that drink made me feel, it took away that fear. It made me feel like I could fit in, and I could breathe. And I had an
yeah,
alcoholic father, and didn't know it runs in the family, but I definitely did get that side of my dad, and I went on this horrible run that brought me into some really bad places. And I'm just like with your experience as a player and as a coach and as a parent, and any challenging times in hockey that you've had to overcome or that you've helped other people, go through, or is this something that you see a lot of as players, that challenge of moving from playing into the real world, we'll call it, with like the
yeah.
quotation marks or anything?
Well, I
Um,
think, yeah, and even myself, I think, like everybody goes through some, uh, I would think you do it just people that retire, for instance, just from a job that maybe they worked who knows, at a steel mill for 30 years, and then they retire, and they're used to seeing the boys at work and going for maybe a pint after and all that stuff. Well, then all of a sudden you're not doing it. But I think with hockey, uh, you kind of feel like I would think it'd be similar to some of these guys that are coming back from war. in a way, like, like the Vietnam vets and stuff that are, they actually miss that, where you're 10 guys or 20 guys going to war together, and then you celebrate together after. And then that's kind of, in a way, hockey's kind of like that. Like, you play on a team, and win or lose, you kind of band together after games, and you go out together, and, and you get into that kind of rhythm of man, you throw everything on the line. And then there's a kind of a celebration period after, which would be just like maybe just having a couple pints at some bar after or whatever. But that kind of leads to, I've seen, you see some guys, like players, like as they're playing, kind of it affects their career, because all of a sudden it becomes too easy to go out and have 4 or 5 beers, and then, now it's 6 beer or whatever, or some drugs or whatever you want to, whatever that release is, right? It's like, it's kind of, and so I think hockey's a unique, I imagine rugby would be similar, like where the rugby team goes out and they, the All Blacks are playing Australia, and they hate each other and they just kill each other. Well, after the game is over, that it's kind of a put your arm around your teammates, and you're the best group of buddies ever, right? Well, guys that retire from hockey, I've seen that they miss that, right? So they try to hunt that same. If you try to hunt those same emotions again, like throw yourself at something and then party. Well, you may throw yourself at some business thing or whatever, but that party thing disappears, right? Like, so, but if you can try, I do see guys that do banquets and stuff that I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I've seen some guys that do that banquet circuit, and they get paid. Well, every town they show up, everybody's their best friend now, and they watch them play, like guys that played and won some Stanley Cups and everything. Well, next thing you know, everybody in those small towns wants to tip a few drinks with that guy and be able to tell everybody, hey, I got drunk with such and such, and he showed me his Stanley Cup rings and everything. Well, these guys, that's a tough road. Some of those guys are doing that banquet thing every weekend right across, they're making dough, they're making money, but that's they're also, I've seen a lot of those guys have to go and get professional help after a while, because they just need it. Like, after a while, it's just too consistent, right? Like, and the drinking and I don't know. There's, and I know players that have those issues, and it's tough to. They don't really think they're, in their own mind, they don't think they're doing anything wrong a lot of times, but then they start to wonder why their marriage is falling apart a bit, or their kids are alienated from them, or they're never home, and they're doing, and I think that's one thing about top athletes. They sometimes they start to believe all the fanfare, and they become very inner focused. Like, I'm the only person on earth, and I'm just going to make myself happy every day with selfish decisions, right? Which is pretty selfish if you pile into a bar every second night and spend $1,000 on some type of whacked out drug or something. I mean, that's a selfish way to be, in a way.
But it's the root of, like, any alcoholic or addict, that it is selfishness that is the root of the problem, because it's like it's fear-based reaction. It's a reaction to fear-based emotions, right? Where I'm so scared of, like, losing, like, my image, not, no one recognizing me anymore, like those things that those guys on the circuit, all of a sudden one day I'm not going to be asked to speak anymore, and like this fear of this loss of identity will create selfish behavior, not because they're selfish, because they're scared of losing.
But it's also, like, let's face it, like, having a drink or two can make a guy confident in his, like, he feels self-confidence all of a sudden goes straight up. But then obviously, if you get to the point where there's a few too many drinks under you, the confidence, it might, you still might be confident, but then there's nobody to talk to because everybody leaves the room, right?
I always thought I was a great MC when I was doing the London Knights dinners and stuff. I thought I was like, John Leslie would buy me a couple of shots of Jack Daniels, and they would have, and I would, I thought it was funny as hell, but I think they were more just laughing at me getting drunk.
And you regret some of the jokes you tell sometimes, I think. That's kind of part of it, but it's I do see that I think, well, you see guys like, I mean, Boris Becker comes to mind. I just read an article on him, the tennis player. And he had a amazing. One Wimbledon, I think he was 17 years old, youngest guy ever. And next thing you know, he's living in London and he's got a whole bunch of dough, and he's just, and everywhere he goes, he's just like, he can't even go into a restaurant without everybody clapping and they're sending him drinks, and it was crazy. He was like probably the most famous non-English person in Britain for a while. Like he's living right down. I believe he lived right down in London, and he just hit all the hot spots every night, and he was going hard. And next thing you know, it was 4 years later, and he was a mess. But I think he's, I don't know, self-fulfilled. Like, so you go out, you're a celebrity, have some drinks. And that's one thing about alcohol. Everybody wants everybody to jump on the party, right? It's not like you go somewhere and you go, hey, would you, like, people go right away, would you like a drink? Like, everybody wants to create this, and if someone says, no, and they can be an outcast then. Oh, what? You're not having a drink? Oh, come on. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen, so
I've had to change a lot of group of friends. I mean, like, I'm nine and a half.
You're not a team guy if you don't have a drink now. So that's part of it too, so.
Oh, I get it here. Like my in-laws, like they don't drink a lot, but they have and then I'm still in the Czech Republic. Like, people think I'm really weird because I don't drink. I get looked at really funny, like and then that's the thing. You're always taught, never trust a man who won't have a beer with you, right?
You're right.
And sure, but roughly about 1 in 10 guys just cannot drink that beer safely, so and I know that the culture around drinking is changing, with all the science behind it now. They say the safest amount of alcohol is 0 units, because it is ultimately ethanol and poison. It's not
it's a poison. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, personally, I probably had a time I would say in my 50s where I believe I was drinking a lot too much. Like I and it was, and I never got to the point where I had to go get a bunch of professional help or anything, but I did, had an app that kind of educated me a little bit about how bad it was. And it changed my habits into that. Instead of daily having drinks, like, you kind of looked ahead. Okay, well, I'm going to have probably a couple on next Saturday night, and and I will, or whatever, right? And then I went a year or two of nothing, which I probably that was tough. Like, because you're all of a sudden, every time you go out, you're telling people, no, I'm just not drinking tonight. Or at first, just do that one. You're like, oh yeah, I got an ear infection, so I'm on antibiotics. I can't drink. And that usually works, but then you can't have an ear infection for a year and a half.
2 years. Yeah.
So that's
the culture around it is changing. I think but I think that it's more what you said too, right, Mike? And I think in your 50s, and now you're what, 64?
65 now. Yeah. Okay. I'm 65. I'm gonna be. Oh, my dog's mad again, and another dog.
So I want to try, because I could talk with you forever. I want to talk about things when we sat and we watched the game together, the TV stuff, how you analyze the game. I want to talk about so many things, but we're kind of running out of time. There's no doubt you're hot, like you have a great hockey mind, and you were a great player, and you've been a very supportive father. But I'm wondering more now too at 65 years old. You've seen the game change. Apart from that time when you were 50 and thinking about alcohol, like, what have you done have you considered that we're in this body, we're on this planet for so many years, we need to evolve and change too? We can't just be set in our old ideas, and that we need to be at least curious, and I like the theme of, like, let's just try to do better, and that's the theme I want to try to get to coaches and players and parents and officials, is let's just do better as human beings, so that we can, like, for ourselves, nutrition, exercise, meditation, whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you, to work on self, so that we can have a better relationship with others. Is that something you're conscious of, you're aware of? Is it something you try to practice?
You know what? It's funny. I think the last few years, I realized that one of the things that you miss as an athlete is that it is that guy with the whistle making you work out every day, because you're getting this really good cardio, and you're getting an excellent you're fit, right? And so what happens, I think a lot of athletes, they don't even want to look at some of the pictures of themselves, like, not necessarily on the ice as a hockey player, but like, just, oh, there's you know, with one of your little kids when you're 28 years old and you're in the prime of your life almost, and you know your skin and everything looks so good. Everything well, you're younger, and of course that helps. But I think that you know, you're not carrying that extra weight. You're not you know, you're not you know, you're not hung over or whatever. You feel fresh, and then you're a better person to the people around you. Like, and you're having more, you know. So I think I got into biking a lot, like you know, whether, and I have to say I don't mind it in the gym on a stationary bike with a bit of the headphones on, good tunes. But I ride a lot in the summer, like, and I try to do like an hour and a half or so on a lot of days, and that, boy, does it ever clear my head. But it also you feel a lot better, like you just feel better. But I think a lot of what I see is a lot of ex guys I played with and stuff. They It was like the tap got shut off as soon as they stopped playing competitive hockey. They stopped, and if they maybe went to the gym a few times and do some weights or something, but they I think that there's something about that cardio, and I'm a big believer in that. That's one thing. If I could say to anybody, to make yourself feel a little bit better in your daily life, if you can get that heart rate of yours up consistently, I think and I think that's, and it can be doing anything. It could be tennis. It could be you know, swimming. I think swimming's supposed to be great. I hate swimming. I don't know why.
I do too.
I like floating. I like floating, and I'm a good floater. I just, you know, I
I'm a
mean,
good sinker. I don't even float. I just go straight to the bottom.
oh, geez, I tell you what, like I'm not a natural swimmer. I would have,
Oh.
you know, Mark Spitz, any of those guys never had to worry about me catching them. I'll tell you. Yeah. So, but anyways, I don't know, something but in the water, the chlorine or something. You know, it gets in your eyes and your ears.
You know what I've started doing is cold plunge, and that is really like that's the like it's
My kids all about that now, like
it
hot
sucks.
sauna and stuff, and
It
then in the
sucks.
cold pool. Yeah.
But no, I have a gym
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's the first thing I do is I go, the water's about 6 degrees, 5 degrees. So I just cold plunge for 3 minutes. Then I go work out. It's
Yeah.
meant to be good for testosterone. So like but it's also good for anti-inflammatory stuff and circulate.
Yeah.
And it gets the dopamine going.
Yeah.
And then I'll do a 20, 30-minute workout. I'll do 2 body parts, and then I'll go in sauna for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm just feeling a lot better, you know, at 55. I've started doing that for 2 years. I don't get sick as much.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
it's really helping me. But I like doing the cold plunge because it sucks and it's the hardest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sucks. I hate doing it every day. But it's
Yeah.
meant to be good for creating more determination in this part of your brain that we need to always keep challenging ourselves to
Yeah.
doing things we hate. And I like
Yeah.
that tip about doing cardio because it
Yeah.
sucks, but you feel so
Yeah.
good when you do it.
Well, you know, the guy I know, I never played senior hockey after, like, or like fun beer league, if you want to call it. I just never did. You know what? I did it a couple times, and I mean, it's hard to explain, but my brain always wanted to take it to a higher. Like, I was one of those guys. I'd either play too hard,
Mhm.
and then you're kind of like the other guys going, "Oh man, fuck, with this guy, cool down. It's just a fun game, you know. What's he doing, trying to win the Stanley Cup here?" Or I couldn't go into that middle area where you just kind of have some fun out there and just kind of play pretty hard. So I would either back right off or go real hard. It was either full speed or no speed, right, with me. So then I thought I'm not going to do it. So then I just stopped doing it. So then I just coach kids. So everybody goes, "Oh, you're still playing hockey? You look like you're pretty fit. Like you look like you could still play it." I go, "I don't play ever."
So if the Sheffield
Yeah.
Steelers had another reunion against the Nottingham Panthers, would you fly over? Would
I
you play?
wouldn't know who to play. I wouldn't know who to play for. You know.
Well, maybe they let you play for both teams.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We did that one about, I don't know how many years ago.
It was in 2011, I think.
Yeah, we had Sheffield play
Cardiff.
Cardiff, and you
Yeah.
know what? Those games were hard.
Yeah.
Like the guys played hard. I couldn't believe it. Like the first game at the start, it was kind of like, but then you got Brabant and these guys playing, and then you got like all those guys for Shannon Hope and all those guys, like everybody. And then I don't know, the instincts took over in that stupid. Those guys were playing pretty hard in those games.
They were playing hard, and that game in Cardiff, there was some like bad blood. Like
Yeah,
Wayne Cowley got hurt. Like he hurt his knee, didn't he? Wayne Cowley was in net for Sheffield.
Yeah.
And he got hurt.
And then I think they ended up winning. Cardiff ended up winning that game, but like they shouldn't have won that. Like and there was some real like some of
Oh
the
yeah.
Cardiff Devils, like they were like ready to like fight.
There was little sticks going, but
Yeah.
okay, I got to tell you about I played Regina Pats played the Moose Jaw Warriors in a alumni game. So I played for the Pats, and then if you put in context, the Warriors came into the league a little later than the Pats. So what happened was the Pats, we had an older team than the Warrior alumni team. And anyways, we went into Moose Jaw. There was two games, one game in Moose Jaw, one game in Regina, and they had big crowds. Anyways, we got all in our gear and everything, and I'm with these older Pats, but a lot of good players, a lot of NHL guys. So we play this game. Well, anyways, we go out in the warm up, and we're kind of like laughing and stretching out, and we look over, and the Moose Jaw team, the Warriors, they got their helmets on, chin straps on, and they are zipping around in the warm up like it's like, and we can feel the air blowing as because they're going so fucking fast. Excuse my language. Anyways, I'm like, I skate over this buddy of mine, Gordy Waffle, and I go, man, I got a feeling this one's gonna get a little heated. And they had like Theo Fleury playing for him, and we had Nevin Marquardt and this Trap, what's Doug Trap or anyways, we had all these guys that hate each other from this rivalry of Moose Jaw. Well, anyways, that game was a freaking animal act. It was like complete. At first I thought there was gonna be no contact. Like within 3 shifts, guys were just smashing guys into the boards and everything. It was nuts. Anyways, the fans were right into it. And anyways, we played 2 games, and after the second game, Selmar Odeline, remember Selmar?
Yeah.
He played for the Pats. Okay, he like blew his whole back and his groin in the game, but he was like taking a painkiller to finish the game for us and everything. It was like I think that thing said. I think he had to have surgery after that game. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. After the second game. But that's how competitive these guys got. And
Okay, well, I want to see what happens if Sheffield Nottingham do a reunion game and you're in that.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. They got to be careful who they have in the lineup. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Because I remember that brawl and all those guys and
Oh,
Polio
yeah.
and guys like that.
Yep.
You know? So
I still talk to Corey a lot. He's very entertaining on Facebook.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Mike,
entertaining.
I want to try to wrap things up now in that you are, like I say, you're very highly respected. I could sit here and talk to you all day long, but what would your parting message be, I guess, to hockey coaches, parents, players, officials on how we really, like I said, like if the theme is like doing better, evolving the culture, creating a culture where everyone really, like I always like want to say, maximize the experience that everyone has in hockey and not be so siloed and people fighting for this and fighting for that, or and get everyone on the same page, I guess, in terms of
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I do I in the summers we do or no, sorry, through the winter we do a camp that was the name of a boy that was killed on if you remember that Humboldt bus crash. So one of my son's good friends that he played with was on that bus and lost his life. So we have a camp that we do in little towns across Saskatchewan, and it's kind of a leadership camp, and it's all about bringing some good coaching to these smaller towns because they're getting forgotten about now because all the top players are coming out of the big cities now because they get all the coaching, right? They get all the power skating, they get all so these little town guys that they may get a ton of ice time buzzing around their little rink, but they don't get the coaching, right? So this was the idea of this. But I do a thing where when I talk to the coaches, I go, here's what you should think about every day that you step on the ice with your little team. Like, because these guys are coaching all various levels, right? And so I go, that hour that you spend in your practice, you want to make it, your goal in your head is that's the best hour those kids are going to have all day. And it's going to be the most fun. It's going to be the most kind of invigorating, rewarding. You want to have they want to know you're the boss. That's for sure. Because that way you get everybody on the same page. But I said, so be tough in that it's physically a demand. I always say, the coaches I respected had practices that when I went off the ice, my hair was soaking wet from sweat, and I knew I had to exert myself that whole time, but I felt good after, right? So that's a key. Like you owe them. That's maybe their only physical activity all day where there's real where so get them moving, have fun, be positive the whole time. It should be like a bubble that you come in, and it's a positivity bubble. Like everybody that comes in the room, you're nice to your teammates. You try to help. Like, and I always say there's going to be players on your team that aren't as good as the top guys, but the top guys have to try to pull the bottom guys up to them a little bit and be encouraging, and not, oh yeah, oh, we don't want Billy on the ice, he's going to cost us another goal or something. Well, the thing is to put your arm around him and tell him this is how you can do better, kid, and let's do this, and let's, so I think what I always say to the coaches is, at the end of the year, you want every guy in that room, or girl, or whoever you got, whatever you got going, is to go, that was such a great year. And then I say stuff like, make sure you got nice, like when you go to the rink, everybody wears the same tracksuit or whatever. And then I have little simple rules, and this is where the discipline comes in a little bit. Like, I don't like the ball caps on backwards. When we go into a restaurant or whatever, take your hat off and thank the waitress after you have a meal. And so everything should be, that's the only discipline though. And it's not, and you never scream at it. You're not screaming at kids individually. You're trying to encourage them, right? Like, and make them all get a little bit better. And so, but it's got to be enjoyable. And little thing, do things away from the rink. Like, you don't always have to, like, instead of going, hey, we're not practicing today, guys, we're having a bowling tournament or whatever. You know what I mean? And these are the captains, and you guys are picking them, and then it's, and the coaches have one team, and we're going to kick your butts, and and all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of like how you want it to be. Like I said, I always say that, just remember that, make that hour their best hour of the day, or maybe you have 2 hours with them, right? And so that's what I would say to coaches and and players and that kind of thing. So anyways, that's kind of it.
Okay. What about parents? Say chill out.
Parents. I think parents, yeah, we always joke about the parents that are like, and it's common to talk about guys that are like, oh boy, you're gonna have to deal. Like, if you're gonna have to deal with his dad. I'll tell you, like, like an hour after the game's over, he's sending me a text about why he had to miss a shift in the second period, and then the coach probably is going, I don't even remember him missing a shift. Hey, and maybe I just wanted to give the one kid that hadn't played at all a little shift. And that's that. I mean, but there. You know what? Some of the best parents are actually parents that never played the sport. Like Shane Pinto, he plays for the Ottawa Senators, and he played with my son Harry. Well, I know his dad, and he's just a freaking Italian guy out of New York, and he never put a pair of skates on in his life, right? Well, his kid's playing for the Ottawa Senators, so he's always just gone along. I remember seeing him in North Dakota, and he just goes along, and he just trusts that everything's going good for his kid, and he just knows he's having fun, and so that's the dream parent for a coach to have, right? Like, he just kind of. But then there's the guy that, some of these guys that played a lot, and they think, and then there's the parent that watches every single second of every shift of just their kid, and they don't even see that anything else is going on. You got to just kind of just realize it's a team sport and just have some fun. Go to the rink with an open mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Just have fun. I always keep saying they're called players for a reason. Let them play.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our job as parents is to support them and to make sure that they're having fun. So,
and then the elite guys are the cream will rise to the top eventually, but it's got to be, and you got to be pushed, obviously, but support your kid, take them, like, drop them off at the best power skating guy, but don't stand at the glass and stare at every stride he makes, so that he feels like every time you're in the rink there's pressure. I think trust. Find out who the best coaches are for your, like, if you really want your kid to play at a high level and he's good or whatever, and he's showing real signs, well, then make sure, do your research on coaches that give a lot of feedback and give a lot of, so that there is real improvement going to happen, and it's fun to be with that coach. And then just trust those guys as a parent, you know what I mean? And go do your own thing. don't live your life through, don't your day, you can't have a bad day just because your kid didn't get a hat trick tonight and then you're grumpy at work all the next day. You know what I mean? Like that's a recipe for disaster, So that's kind of the way I think it should be,
Mike, I can't thank you enough, man. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. What are you gonna do for the rest of the day?
Well, I got a dog sitting here barking at everything that walks by. It sounds like she wants a good walk. Mondays are a real good day for me. It's I don't do much. We have a couple rental properties that my wife and I have, so I've always got to check on them a little bit. And one's a short term rent, so people are coming and going, and we have cleaning ladies going in there and all that stuff. So, and if they don't show up, then I got the mop out, and they don't show up sometimes.
Yeah.
I gotta coach those.
You put the gloves on and everything.
And I think I've been too nice to those cleaning ladies. I gotta get the whip out,
Mike, it's been a pleasure, man. It's been a pleasure. Say hi to your family for me, and we'll get this podcast out. I'll send you the link, and then maybe we'll get you on again in a few more months and have another catch because I just love talking to you, man. It's so much fun.
Okay, all right, buddy.
Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna stop the recording. I need to take a picture. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us for the Retry podcast. I hope you got a lot from it. Mike, the legendary Mike Blaisdell. Until next time, we'll see you later.